gentlemen, boys and girls, step right this way. Tonight, in the big tent, you will see a spectacle never before witnessed by modern man. Tonight, the star attractions are locked in their cages. For tonight, the downtrodden of the new ringmasters.
And if we chase by chuckles and down, roll up and down the big staircase, a secret panel to another place. I saw a guy wear a hockey mask, and he's carrying a bloody ass. He chases me on down the hall, and blood dripping from the wall.
I don't need you to live with a psycho. Misery says you're a rival. I don't need no Jekyll and Hyde girl. I don't need you to be living with a psycho.
Hey, this is Bill Mosley, and you're watching the Chuckles and Laughs Show. Extraordinary segment with Big Rudy and Beyond the Veil Paranormal. I said it right finally. It only took 8 takes. But this has been extraordinary. We've had a lot of feedback going on here. Maybe they've answered some of your questions and maybe they have not. But this is the opportunity that we usually give our actors or guests, which they drop one by one. That's what happens when you pump the place full of mustard gas eventually.
The crowd has been culled.
But what's living might have some questions to ask young ladies and, of course, Carl. So if anybody wants to come up, this is your time to go up and ask a question. And if you don't, I'm telling you, come up and ask a question anyways. Come on.
I'll go first.
We have a question from you.
Come closer, come closer.
Hello.
Yeah,
Hello.
I saw one of the Bigfoot shows one time where a woman said the Bigfoot was an alien who only beamed down to Earth temporarily. So I was wondering what your take on that opinion might be.
I don't think that happened. I mean, it could be possible. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know everything about this creature, but I honestly think it's the missing link.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I kind of shook my head at
I don't think it was beamed down.
Bring me down, Scotty!
Well, that would explain a lot.
That's a good question.
That's why.
Well, that's why she said that's why you don't see it, because it only beams down to Earth for short periods of time.
Related to that is the
No.
interdimensional theory, where Sasquatch exists in another dimensional realm that sometimes enters our
And why
reality,
can I smell
sometimes
him
go
crawl?
back. Yeah, I think he's more rooted in our
Actually, that's
Earth.
me. I have to shower. So. Thank you.
Very good question. And Loch Ness also has golf games out there with, Santa Claus and all that. But now that is pretty interesting about the beam, and I've never heard that one.
I have at a conference.
You've heard that?
Yeah.
Now, we haven't touched on this subject, and this is a subject for another show about aliens. And they are part of the paranormal research. You guys ever thought about playing with that stuff, or do you have too much on your plate already?
Well, we do kind of have a lot on our plate right now, but I do have some people that are members of Beyond the Veil who actually does UFO research, and I do believe that UFOs are real. I've never seen one. I'm not ready to. I've already seen Bigfoot. I've seen ghosts. I've seen enough.
Perhaps that's a little more disconcerting or even spookier than the other
I
branches
think it
of
is.
paranormal research, because we're dealing with or speculating about races that are far advanced scientifically than are we. They've possibly been around longer, been visiting Earth for many years, and The Sasquatch don't normally abduct people. There are a couple of accounts where they've taken human for some time, but the humans get out of there. It's a little scary to think of going up in a spaceship by something that's in control. So it's a fascinating branch of paranormal research, and as you mentioned, Chuckles, it is paranormal. It's beyond what is normally understood and accepted. So I think there are going to be 3 divisions of research in Beyond the Veil Paranormal Research. There will be the ghost hunting, the parapsychology branch, and Sasquatch research, Big Rody Research Project, and alien encounters and alien visitations and seeing UFOs. When we say UFO, of course, that just means unidentified flying object. And there have been far too many reports of these things being seen in our skies to just dismiss as hallucination. Too many commonalities.
Now, you guys have seen the movie 1941, right? The one with the, or Battle for LA, or whatever the heck it was. The movie was actually based off a craft that had came into our atmosphere in 1941, and they unloaded on this thing, like unloaded everything they had, and they even have it on radio of, you know, one of the guys saying there's something in the sky, and it just moved in quickly. They proved that this thing was not an air balloon, and because if it was, it would have been shredded and fall down. They also proved that it wasn't light encounters going up. However, that could have been the one alien that was coming down to give us the hope of glimmer for a cure for every disease we had, and we shot at it. Now, he probably went up there and said, you know that planet down there? If you go there armed. So I believe the next group that we actually do encounter, I'm not going to be like that movie where they're standing up looking at the spaceship and smiling and waving. I'm running into the woods with Bigfoot. I'm going to take my chances there, because those things coming down are not going to play hopscotch with us. They're going to blow us away. So yeah, I believe the alien stuff is scarier in that respect, as these things are way smarter than us. And they obviously have the technology, the paths to travel light years. Light years, because the closest galaxy, ladies and gentlemen, is 450 light years away. That's not saying they're not coming from another planet that's in here, but they had the technology to travel here without blinking an eye. So I believe that when they do come down here, we're in a lot of trouble. And I hope I'm dead when that happens.
Well, because they would be the big guys on the block. I mean, we're very fragile as a species now, especially because technologically we're so specialized. How easy it would be to introduce a virus that we don't have time to find an antidote for, or destroy our economic system. It's like unraveling a big ball of thread. It would be so easy to do. A natural catastrophe could undo our economic system, and we'd be back in what we call the Middle Ages.
Just the power grid going down.
It's so fragile,
we kill
so it'd be...
a lot of people would die from that, and I know how to survive without electricity, and I'm sure you know how to survive without electricity, and many of you in the audience
we wouldn't be that
would know how
formidable
to survive without electricity.
to an extraterrestrial race with advanced technology. And as I said, these things have been seen for so many millennia. They've been reported millennia. There have been accounts of strange things in the sky. Biblical stories.
Back to the biblical times, yes.
The book of Ezekiel, what sounds very much like a UFO is described.
You bring up a very, very good point, Dina. If this thing came down and just cut the power on us, now, we in Rhode Island, we panicked. Actually, the country panicked during that last storm. We were out of power for 5 days. If this thing came down and cut the power to the entire world, paralyze us. Without electricity, humans now, they can't live. There's a very small portion of us that know how to live without it. And it's usually the ones that did the camping and all that stuff that will survive. But the main majority of these folks, God forbid, you went without your cell phone to text somebody or a television show to catch that crappy thing, American Idol. So if this thing came down here and cut the power to us, we're done.
Or even just use the bathrooms.
Exactly.
Wait, I'm just saying, like in New York City or something. What would those people do without electricity?
What would our military do without electricity?
Right. So they don't need the super death rays. All they have to do is have knowledge of the workings of our economic and our military systems, and it would be very easy to undo us.
That's why I watch all those survivor shows.
It may
How to
come
survive out in the woods and what you need, and I love those shows.
I never make fun of
learned
anybody.
a lot of that stuff.
We're being scouting. Ever, because those will be the ones you will be coming to once of the military asking for help. So all those years you picked on that scout in high school, remember, when the aliens come down and try to wipe us out, you might want to find out where he's at, because that's your best chance of survival.
Or a bunch of Bigfoot hunters out in the woods, because we know how to survive.
Or find Bigfoot himself, and I'm sure he'll be able to make you survive, because if we can't find Bigfoot, the aliens won't find us hiding with Bigfoot.
You may be camping out with Bigfoot, I'll be left out.
We're going to be having venison with Bigfoot.
Yeah, Bigfoot's not taking us, Carl, they're taking the girls. We're all done. I don't blame them.
But talking about alien existence, it would be truly remarkable to think that we are the only intelligent species in this universe. I mean, when I was going to grade school, it was speculated that there were maybe 100 billion stars in our Milky Way galaxy, and now it's found out that's a very conservative estimate. So there are perhaps a trillion, just a very rough figure, a trillion stars in the Milky Way galaxy. We are one of hundreds of billions of observable galaxies in the known universe, and they're finding out more every day. Yeah. And they have star systems, planets. Other planets have been discovered more and more. I mean, and Earth-like planets, in fact. To think that we are the only intelligent species, and how we define intelligence, maybe some other race defines it differently. So we don't know. We don't know any more about these alien races than guinea pigs in a cage would know about the people who feed them and watch them and keep them.
It is interesting. A couple of years ago, they were actually getting ready to take down the Hubble telescope because they thought it was obsolete, piece of junk. And then they found a way of filtering out the sun's glare on this thing. And this Hubble telescope actually has better projectors than some of the satellites are up there. Now we picked up galaxies and planets that look very similar to Earth with that blue glow to it. And one of them they picked up was actually the size of Jupiter. And they said this thing spun around the sun so quickly that its year was like 30 days. And so, and this was a blue planet like ours. Imagine being on that planet. 30 days a year. You age real quick.
Yeah, you better not plan too far ahead.
No, so there will be no Rocky Point filming in 30 days. We will be done. Any other questions out in the audience here? I mean, we asked anything. We just touched on aliens, Bigfoot,
Bigfoot, aliens,
ghosts,
yeah, it all.
George W. Bush, horses. George W. Bush is definitely paranormal, that's for sure. I mean, I didn't vote him. Who did that?
He's anomalous.
Anybody else out there?
Yeah,
Come on
hold
over. There.
Oh,
Fight over!
I can't do it from off stage.
Oh dear. It took me a while to get up from out from under there.
Nurse
so
Misery?
I'll sneak up.
A semi-portable microphone.
Yeah, I'll bring this over to Marin after.
Okay.
I was wondering how each of you got interested in the paranormal and what drew you to your fields to start.
Okay, when I was 4, I started seeing ghosts and communicating with spirits and hearing them when I was about 4 years old. I don't see them as much as I used to when I was younger. I still can hear them audibly every once in a while in a real haunted location. I also can feel when I walk into a haunted location if it's haunted or not. So that's basically what got me into the field of seeing things since I was about 4 years old.
Empathic, are you?
Yes, just a little.
Well, for me, I've always been interested in the dark side of things, the mysterious and even the forbidden. My earliest reading was Famous Monsters of Filmland, and by the time I was 8 and 9 years old, I had read Mary Shelley's novel Frankenstein and Bram Stoker's Dracula, Gaston Leroux's Phantom of the Opera, so I've always liked weird things. When I was 14, I started to play on a Ouija board. Not that we recommend that, you folks out there, but got some strange experiences through that. My sister and I used to play that parlor game, Ouija board. And when I was 15, she was 13, one time I asked, give us a sign. And the planchette on the Ouija board spelled out cellar with the letters C-E-L-L-A-R. So we went to the top of the basement stairs, waited there for about 20 minutes. We were just about to give up, and we heard rappings on a wooden partition along the stairwell, and then more rappings. And it wasn't long after that that my parents' home was subject to what we now call paranormal activity. Furnishings moving around, an apparition seen downstairs. But even before that, my brother and I had strange experiences there, disembodied voices, which I now call AVP, audible voice phenomena, term coined by Dina Palazzini. Didn't we have an example of AVP here earlier today
We
in the studio?
we had some giggling off the back there while we were filming, and we yelled at everybody to shut up, and there was no one out here giggling.
Now, Aries, you had more than answer my question.
You want a microphone? Oh, you got a microphone.
I've always liked the paranormal. Like we talked about earlier, you're just kind of weird if you wanted to, talk about it or anything like that. And I'm from North Carolina, so it's weirder. So you just don't talk about it. You don't. And my house that got left to me and my brother from my great-grandparents on our property, our house is actually used to be a hospital for the Revolutionary soldiers. So, we've seen full apparitions, we have stuff moving, you can hear people, we have shadows that go from certain spots in the house to another certain spot. And then the house I live in now, I actually see my great-grandfather. So it's always been something I've wanted to do, and now I'm actually getting to do that. So I'm really excited about it.
You get to
And
hang
you,
around with
Chris?
weirdos.
Yeah. Well, I used to go to cemeteries with my brother when I was little, and he used to take me. And I was always very afraid because he would tell ghost stories on the whole ride up there. So I would go into, I had a little tiny baseball bat, like I thought that wouldn't do anything. But
You had your glow-in-the-dark baseball.
no, it didn't glow in the dark, just a little wooden baseball bat, and I thought that would protect me. But I was always afraid, and then I'd heard my brother had started a paranormal research group, and I didn't want to be afraid anymore. And I'm not, so.
So you kind of conquered your fears.
I did.
So
By facing
you haven't found anything yet that has put you back into that mode. No,
And
brave.
well, I used to see like kind of dark figures and things in my house, and I'd be afraid of it, and I'm not anymore. Like that doesn't. I know it's not going to hurt me, so I'm not afraid anymore.
Very good. And we have another question out there, Ms. Marion.
This is, I guess this is sort of a series of questions for the group as a whole, pertaining to the whole supposed Bigfoot phenomena. Several years back, I had a friend in college, and I was over her house, and her husband was telling me the story. They lived, I believe it's Route 3 in the Ashaway, Westerly area down in Hopkinton. And at the time, he worked a third shift job at this factory place. And his buddy would pick him up at like 11 o'clock at night, and they'd drive in the dark to work. And through sort of the backwoods of Ashaway and Hopkinton. And I thought he was pulling my leg, but when he was telling me the story, he turned white as a sheet and he looked dead serious. But he believes in this supposed ape-like humanoid creature, Bigfoot, whatever you want to call it. And he, like other stories I've heard, now I don't know if this is something you guys have come across or if any of the footage you've caught, you've seen this, but they call it albino is the way he described it. Like it was all white and upright, and he said it looked like it was dragging a carcass of some sort, not human, like more like an animal kill, maybe a deer or something. It happened so fast. And, they're on their way to work. His buddy saw it too. They didn't want to stop or go back to see. And, and I kept asking questions. Well, do you think it's possible it could have been a bear? I mean, not that I've known polar bears to come this far south. And, they're so big and white. I think, like, the naturalist and conservation community would have said something and noticed something if that happened. But you know, I kept asking, well, do you think it was a bear? This and that, because they can, you know, work upright sometimes, things like that. But no, he was convinced of it. And then I heard, you know, I would hear these stories. My friend told me there used to be a website dedicated to the stories of this albino Bigfoot. Some lady claimed it chased her on her bicycle once when she was just bike riding down the Great Swamp area, wherever they call it down there. And I know, you know, I've been through that area, and I know it is kind of rural. And I mean, hey, I live, you know, pretty much near, you know, right in the Situate Reservoir, and we have rural areas. I mean, that's, you know, so supposedly there are mountain lion sightings now. Just there was an article in people the other day, a guy set up trap cameras off of 116 in the Brandy Brook Road area, and they're debating on whether it's a large bobcat or if it is mountain lion. So I guess it's possible, but I guess my question is, is this something that you've encountered? Do you think that it's possible, or that it's more of like, you know, camouflaged fur, and that this is more of sort of a legend, a story? And if so, do you think Rhode Island really, because I know I always thought Rhode Island's so small that I don't think it really could sustain a creature that big resources-wise, or whether maybe it's just migrating, passing through from a bigger area like Canada or northern U.S. or something like that.
I think you've answered your own question, young.
Well,
okay.
I want to say
I'm
something.
sorry. I know it was big and complicated. I'm sorry.
No, I understood everything you said.
Yeah.
Just like with humans and other mammals, we turn gray, and our hair eventually turns white.
Right.
So it could have been an aging Sasquatch.
Yeah.
You know, just like
And there have been other sightings in South County.
Real.
other sightings, like they call them the apex ape, and he was white
And it was white. Okay.
because he was probably old.
All right. Well, that's what I just wondered, because so many people seem to, you know, seen it, but I was like, well, if it's big and white, don't you think it would, I don't know, get noticed more? I don't know.
Well, it's got gray hair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it doesn't know how to dye it. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
But I've got to say, your friend isn't the only one who's reported seeing
Yeah.
a white ape. Now that does beg the question: how is a seven and a half foot tall creature, man-like creature, going to stay concealed if it's white like that? I mean, all mammals produce albinos, you know, aberration of the pigment, but an albino Sasquatch stretches the imagination. Yet people have reported in Rhode Island, especially in the 1970s through the later 1980s. People were seeing this white gorilla, some people called it, you know, white ape-like creature that walked on two legs. I don't know, but, you know, I just got to say your friend's not alone in that.
Yeah. But and my other part of the question was, you know, is it possible, do you think, and I'm not saying that this is the case all the time, you know, maybe there is such a creature, but do you think it's possible there are just some crazy people that like to live out in the woods and let their hair grow out and just be, you know, like sometimes you see homeless people in the city are like crazy. But because I would hear stories about certain Native American tribes had a ritual, like a coming of age ritual, where men, especially on the West Coast where there are a lot of Sasquatch sightings in like Washington State, Oregon, and supposedly some of these tribes still do it, where coming of age ceremony where they're supposed to live out in the woods for like a month and, you know, try to survive on their own and without any clothes or anything, and things like that.
Well, suppose the subspecies of human, or even like Homo sapiens as we are, suppose they started doing that 12,000 years ago and continued living out in the wild.
Yeah.
Would they not have physically adapted to their environment? Just like certain fish, like carp, goldfish, you put them in a fish bowl, they're going to be small. Put them in a pond, they get big. You know, they adapt to their environment. Perhaps this species of feral human in different regions did adapt by growing bigger and developing hair. Maybe it was always its own species, but I kind of like the feral human hypothesis.
Yeah,
you know, that
I
they
just
would
wonder about
get
it
hairy.
Yeah, I'm
and,
not saying every single time, but I'm curious about it.
I am too.
The last part of my question was actually for Aries, was because I know you have livestock and they use your horses and everything. Sometimes when, you know, I'll watch these shows and hear people's stories, a lot of times livestock, the horses or cows or whatever, get spooked and things like that. On your travels with using the horses and everything, has anything like that happened yet where you've noticed the horses get spooked? Are you concerned for if you did come across their safety and things like that and how they'd react?
One of my horses that Dina actually rides, whenever you come across graveyards or any Indian burials or anything like that, he gets very nervous. He is very sensitive. Other horses I have, they're, you know, like whatever, they're not as sensitive. But some, yes, if a leaf drops, they know it, and they're gonna leave.
Right.
Not really afraid for their safety, because they're gonna get you out of there, whether you can get them to or not, they're going to. That's survival for them.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I was gonna say, whenever you asked, you know, if it could be a bear.
Mhm.
Bears are so top heavy, they cannot carry any kind of carcass or anything
for
in
a long
an
period of time.
upright
Right.
position.
No. Yeah, no, I don't. My grandmother lived in New Hampshire for many years, and there was this black bear that liked to check out her pickup truck all the time, and he'd go up on his hind legs and try to get in the window. But yeah, it was for a short period of time. So I know, and she would say the same thing. And the reason I asked you about the livestock thing is before she moved to New Hampshire, when she lived in an old farmhouse in Newtown, Connecticut for many years, there was some strange things that went on in that whole property. Not just in the house, but in the surrounding woods and whatnot. And my mother and her sister, my aunt at the time, had 2 horses there that my uncle took care of. One of them, a saddlebred, he was fine. He never acted strange. He acted normal. Just, you know, give him food. That's all he cared about, you know. But my aunt's Appaloosa, who was very tame and docile and gentle, she acted funny sometimes. Like, she almost seemed more sensitive to things. She would look towards the woods and then sort of like walk away. She wanted to stay away. She wanted to stay closer to the barn more. So I've noticed that myself. So that's why I wanted to pose that question to you.
A lot of things with Appaloosas, a lot of people think that they're more sensitive to all kinds of paranormal due to the fact that paints and Appaloosas were Native American animals. And, you know, they did all their spiritual stuff with them, all that. So a lot of people think, you know, if you have your paints and your Appaloosas, they're a lot more sensitive anyway. So that could be another...
Yeah, thank you. I didn't know that, so thank you for answering that. Anyways, thank you for answering my question.
Listen to this. This is the tape I found downstairs.
Shut it off.
Ganda.